Oh, we've got a fun one for you today. Welcome, everybody, with George Knapp. You've got Mystery Wire here, Carlos Sampson on the board with John Forrester as well. I'm Ron Futrell. Here we go, jumping into what I'm going to call the word of the year, maybe last year, the year before, disclosure. A lot of people want to know when the government is going to let us know. You've got an Age of Disclosure documentary out. Spielberg has a movie coming out titled simply Disclosure. I know that's been one of your big issues over the years, and you, with Lou Elizondo, were involved in disclosure, trying to get the government to reveal what they know.
My suggestion is, folks, don't hold your breath. I mean, I've heard ever since I started down this road in the 80s that disclosure was right around the corner. Still hasn't happened. I think there are really good reasons why, say, the president would not make that announcement and would be happily proven wrong. But Lou Elizondo has been a warrior in that. He's helped move the ball down the field for sure. I've known him a long time, and we can talk about that in a little bit. Yeah,
you testified recently before Congress on a lot of these disclosure issues to try to get them to reveal what they know.
Yep.
Here's a story you did, and again, people are talking about disclosure. Seems to be a current issue. Oh, no, you were on it in this case, and I love digging up these old stories you've got, George. This was January 2018. You talked to him before that, and we're going to touch on that in a moment, but you talking with Lou Elizondo, who at the time was working with the government and just getting ready to leave the government, but talking about disclosure and some of those issues. So here's the story. Again, January 2018 when you talked to Lou Elizondo.
Is it a threat? And if it's a threat, is it Russian? Is it Chinese? And yet, these are all normal questions you would ask, whether you're dealing with terrorism or weapons of mass destruction or any issue du jour, right? National security issue du jour. And yet, here we are with something that
doesn't fit.
Luis Elizondo has spent most of his adult life protecting his country, on active duty in combat hotspots, handling terrorists at Guantanamo, and at the Pentagon, where he was the point man for AATIP, the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program. The program collected and analyzed information about encounters between the U.S. military and spectacular but unknown technology, what some would call UFOs.
My job in the government at the time, really, regarding AATIP, was twofold: to determine what it was and how it worked. Not really focusing on, as I said before, who's behind the steering wheel or their intent. I figured if we can answer at least those two first things, everything else we'll be able to explain later.
Elizondo says even his immediate supervisor in the Pentagon was unaware of the program. The word threat is built into the name AATIP, and even though the unidentified craft being reported didn't launch an Independence Day type attack on humanity or zap major cities with death rays, the Defense Department had to consider the possibilities. The so-called Tic Tac UFO, for instance, was detected over several days in 2004 by personnel with the USS Nimitz battle group off the coast of San Diego. It didn't attack, but it demonstrated vast superiority over America's most advanced defense systems.
I think if you were to take this issue that we've seen, you have something coming into our airspace, or the airspace we control, that has maybe a Russian star on the tail or has North Korean tail numbers, I think people would have a much different reaction and response, because there's something we can identify and say, that is in our airspace and shouldn't be here. You, DOD, you, CIA, you, DHS, have the responsibility of protecting us. How did this happen? And yet, here we have that same scenario, but there are no flags and tail numbers on the tail. In fact, there may not even be a tail on some of these things. And yet it's crickets. Nobody wants to have the conversation.
In 2007, a small group of senators led by Nevada's Harry Reid initiated a program to change the culture surrounding UFO reports. Reid was motivated in part because of classified reports he'd read about UFO encounters over U.S. nuclear bases in which atomic weapons were somehow disabled.
The communications in the missile defense installation was shut down. Didn't happen once, more than once. We have things in ships at sea. These things in the water, what is that?
The program set up by the Pentagon to assist AATIP was housed at Bigelow Aerospace in southern Nevada. The contract ended in 2012, but Elizondo believes some version of the study is still ongoing. He thinks it makes sense to study Tic Tacs and other UFOs and compares it to how you might react if someone pierced your home security system.
The first thing you do as you come down your stairs, as you look in your living room, you see muddy boot prints in your living room on the carpet that weren't there the night before. Now, nothing's been taken out of your house, nothing's been disturbed, no one's been harmed, and yet every night, despite you locking the front doors and the windows and turning the alarm on, there are muddy boot prints that keep showing up on your carpet. Now, is that a threat?
Is that a threat? Well, I think most people would consider that a threat. Sir, I would consider that a threat. Okay, Elizondo, you first met him before this, certainly, and before the New York Times article came out in 2017.
Right. So in that program, in that story, we were calling the program AATIP because the first time I ever heard a name for the secret study, it was AATIP in the New York Times. But the real name was AATIP, and it was a secret that I didn't know about until later, and it was based here in Las Vegas. Lou Elizondo had spent his life in the shadows. Look at the guy. He's a badass. He had in his portfolio at the Pentagon a bunch of really heavyweight national security issues that he oversaw, worked counterintelligence for. The UFO thing was introduced to him in 2008, 2009, when the AATIP people, including Bigelow, asked Lou to be the counterintelligence officer for that in the event it became a special access program, which never happened. But Lou got interested in it, and he went forward with a guy named Tom DeLonge, the rock star, who created an organization called To the Stars. They unveiled Lou. It was the first time the public got a look at Lou in October of 2017. 2 days later, Tom DeLonge and Lou Elizondo were here in Las Vegas to go to dinner with me and Bob Bigelow, and they showed us the Tic Tac video. I had already broken the story about the Tic Tac incident with Jeremy Corbell on radio months earlier, but to see that video, boom, wow. And then a few months later, the New York Times hits. Lou Elizondo is further exposed to the world, and his life has never been the same. He's always seen himself as kind of a heroic guy, working for our country, protecting it from its enemies, even in combat. And then he becomes a UFO guy and gets totally pilloried, pillaring that continues to this day.
But he worked his way up through the military type of thing. So he went through all the training and everything that you go through in the military, and then had that. But Disclosure is a couple of things: the Age of Disclosure documentary, and also the movie with Spielberg. What do you know about? We have about a couple of minutes left in this minute left in this segment. What do you know about those two?
Well, we've both seen Age of Disclosure. I thought it was a terrific documentary. It has all these different national security people, including Lou and Jay Stratton and others, speaking almost with one voice to say, hey, this is real. We've had secret programs. It's a national security issue. We need to take it seriously and get off the dime. It's a very powerful production. What it will do, will it move the ball down the field? Well, we have to wait and see. As for Disclosure Day, the Spielberg movie, look, anytime Steven Spielberg does a UFO movie, I'm there. Close Encounters is one of my top 5 films of all time, and he does have seemingly some inside information. I can't wait to see it.
We'll see later this summer. Okay, when we come back, Dave Fravor, the pilot who saw the Tic Tac video, your story with him when we come back to Mystery Wire. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Another guy who seems very involved in disclosure, Dave Fravor, pilot. I want to talk to you about your interactions with him in a moment. But first, let's watch the story. It's about 5 minutes long, but it's a fascinating story. And again, put it in the context of today, that this was 2018 when you did this story with Dave Fravor, pilot, and what he saw there with the Tic Tac videos puts a lot into context. But when we come back, I want to talk to you about Fravor and what he's all about and everything. But interesting. Here we go. George's story from back in 2018.
During a 2-week period in November 2004, the world's most sophisticated sensor systems attached to the powerful USS Nimitz carrier group were befuddled by repeated cat-and-mouse type incursions of unknown objects off the coast of Southern California.
Objects that were detected one second, then gone the next. On November 14th, radar operators finally got a lock on one object, later dubbed the Tic Tac, and sent Top Gun pilot David Fravor to investigate. Fravor, the commander of the famed Black Aces squadron, sped through the skies in his F-18 and could not believe what he was seeing. Years later, his opinion has not changed.
The video was taken by a crew after us when we came back and landed. There were 4 of us. We chased it visually, and I looked at it for over 5 minutes. I watched it moving around. I watched it interact with me. I cut across the circle when it disappeared. So it's not a bird. It's not a weather balloon. It had no wings. It had no rotors. There was no wash. I mean, I've heard all the internet, people of what it is. Most of them have no idea what they're talking about. And the 4 of us will, to this day, tell you that we have no idea what we saw as far as where it was from or what it was. But it had incredible performance characteristics that were well beyond brand new Super Hornets right out of the factory, which is what the jets were we were flying.
Fravor says the Tic Tac took off like a bullet shot from a gun. Commander Chad Underwood was in the second F-18 sent after the Tic Tac. Equipment on his plane recorded the grainy image from an infrared sensor. Underwood says there's a second recording that's never been released. He adds the Tic Tac engaged in active jamming.
I did get jamming cues on my radar tape, and you can see cues of jamming on both your radar and your FLIR tape.
Accounts vary about what happened to the recordings afterward. The encounter was not investigated by the Navy and wasn't sent up the chain. A few years later, a bootleg of the recording appeared online but didn't make much of a splash. A more detailed article by a former Navy pilot appeared later in an online aviation publication without much notice. Then in December 2017, the Tic Tac made worldwide news when it was the centerpiece of a front-page story in the New York Times. The article revealed the existence of previously unknown Department of Defense programs looking into UFOs. The Tic Tac and Commander Fravor's account were viewed as solid proof that genuine unknowns have continued to perplex the world's most powerful military. That is still the case today. The Times article turned the UFO subject on its head. Other mainstream media started looking into the cover-up. Members of Congress asked questions and demanded briefings. The public showed renewed interest in a subject long dismissed as nonsense. Veteran journalist Ralph Blumenthal admits it was a tough sell to get his editors to run that story.
Everything was documented, but it was still a difficult topic for the Times to grapple with. And the Times has a history of being very skeptical of UFOs, as you know.
The larger story was an expose of a previously unknown investigation of UFO encounters within the U.S. military dubbed AATIP, described as a program by some or a working group by others. A career intelligence officer named Lou Elizondo, who left his Pentagon position in October 2017, was instrumental in getting the Tic Tac video into the hands of the New York Times. He said this in January 2018 when we asked about the Tic Tac Nimitz encounters. Are there other similar cases still hidden in military files?
But there are many, many Nimitz incidences that are equally compelling, that are told from the eyes of individuals, just like Commander Dave Fravor.
Documents surfaced later showing Elizondo had taken formal steps to get the Tic Tac video and others released to the public. Another former intelligence insider, Chris Mellon, admits he put the videos into the hands of the New York Times. The subsequent wave of publicity led to the creation of a new Department of Defense investigation, the UAP Task Force. That organization, headed by a veteran intelligence pro named Jay Stratton, quietly compiled and analyzed other astonishing UFO videos and cases, a few of which eventually surfaced in media reports, including ours. In his very first on-camera interview, Stratton told us a major goal of his task force was to reduce the stigma so that more military pilots would be willing to report their encounters. So what does the Pentagon know about the Tic Tac today? Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, who headed up a subsequent UFO investigation called Arrow, claims that pretty much all UFO cases can be explained, and that the Tic Tac could be explained too if only there was more data. But there is. What Kirkpatrick and others chose to overlook is that a highly detailed analysis of the Tic Tac and its capabilities was written. It was the very first case investigated by a hush-hush program within the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and based in, of all places, Las Vegas. It had yet another odd acronym, AATIP.
It was completely UFO related.
Now, there you go, putting it all together there, George.
It's hard to follow all these acronyms,
But yes, a lot of acronyms. What was it like for you when, and I remember when that New York Times story came out in 2017. This is a story you had been chasing for 3 decades at that point, and then here comes the New York Times on a story that you knew about, first of all, but also gave you a little bit of backup cover, if you will, that, okay, here comes other media confirming what you had known and reported.
Well, it felt pretty good. I mean, I was really glad to see a prestigious media organization like the Times go ahead and report it because it had a massive impact, the kind of impact that me, a lowly reporter in Las Vegas, could never achieve. But I was also frustrated because I knew that the program that later I learned the name AATIP, I knew it was underway here. I knew that their first case that they investigated was the Tic Tac, which was gigantic. I helped break part of that story and talked to Dave Fravor 9 months before the New York Times broke it. So, it was both elation and frustration in that I didn't get to do the story. And I was going to do it. After I heard it was coming out, I said, well, I've been sitting on this for 10 years. Why don't I get to do it? And I got a call from Harry Reid, and I got a call from Robert Bigelow, and I got a call from Tom DeLonge, and they all asked me the same thing. If you back off and hold off, the New York Times will drop it if you break it first. So if you hold off for a while, we promise we'll help you get exclusives, which, of course, that's how it worked out.
No, but great insight. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's and that happens sometimes in the media. That's nothing sinister about that, but it just happens to be able to.
It was kind of like
Get the
taking
story.
one for the team, and
No,
I was
I get
happy
it.
to do it if that helped advance the cause of greater understanding of these secret programs that our government does, in fact, take it seriously, and that's how it worked out. I got to, we got to meet Fravor and Jay Stratton, and Lou and I became really good friends, and all of those guys who are heroes in a sense. They work for our country. They do their best to protect national security. Once they come out and say, yeah, UFOs are real, we had secret programs, they get beaten up and insulted and ridiculed and dragged through the mud for the rest of their lives, and that's what's underway right now for those guys.
Okay, more on disclosure when we return to Mystery Wire with George Knapp. Okay, our topic of the day, disclosure and everything that entails. Certainly, Lou Elizondo played an important role in that. Here's one of the questions you asked him in 2018, and I grabbed this interview portion of it. We asked him what he was planning on doing after government service. Didn't work out this way, but it is sort of interesting in the context of 2018 to see this interview with Lou.
Frankly speaking, my intent was to leave government service and maybe out of ignorance on my part, fade off into the sunset. Maybe go work at one of the big supermarket chains or go drive a truck or something, and fade off into the sunset. I think, given the topic of what we're talking about, I think, given the fact that it is an emotional topic for many, many people, and rightfully so. I think people have invested a large amount of energy and time and patience and resources trying to get to the truth. And I think when the government finally came out and acknowledged, yes, we had a program, and by the way, yes, we still have a program as of 3 months ago. I think it's natural for people to react the way they did. And as you're gonna have the full spectrum of reactions, right? So on one side, you're gonna have some folks that are very, very excited that this information finally came out and that this information, the government's being truthful and disclosure, so to speak. And then you have the other side of the spectrum where, this type of acknowledgement in some cases could be a bit of a hard pill to swallow.
Okay. I'm curious now as I see that interview again from January 2018, and he talks about government still having programs today. At that time, government still have does our government still have programs today investigating UFOs as of the time we're doing this, January 2026?
Yes, and programs plural. The ones that we know about, AATIP and AATIP and the UAP task force, they're gone. But the official clearance house for all things UFO is ARROW, which is really sort of a counterintelligence disinformation, don't worry folks, move along, nothing to see here operation, as opposed to really doing some investigations. There is something else that was just recently launched And then there are programs around the bodies in the craft. UFO crashes are real. They have happened. We have that stuff stashed away in different places. Craft, parts, materials, bodies. And those are part of a program that's trying to figure out how to essentially weaponize, recreate it, reverse engineer it. That's ongoing. It's been ongoing for a long time, yes.
Have they ever asked you to work for the government? Now and would you, if they came to you and said, George, we want you to come here and help us out with something. Explain to us what this is.
I've been asked twice.
And?
I said no.
You said no, but okay.
I said no. I didn't want to get a security clearance because I knew for sure that I could never report it. Me not having a clearance, I still learn little tidbits about these secret programs, and I can report them. If I were to join the programs, I'd know a lot more, but I couldn't say any of it in public.
You wouldn't be George Knapp.
Right.
No, you wouldn't be. Yes, but people can bring that information to you, as they've done, as we've shown here, can bring the information to you, and you can, report it.
Lou Elizondo is a really interesting guy. As I said, I like him. We're friends, but we've had our differences. There are different versions of how things went down from the different key people who are involved: Jim Lukatsky, Lou Elizondo, Colin Kelleher, Robert Bigelow, and others, Jay Stratton. There are different versions of those things that are told in different formats, all essentially telling the same story, though, with some differences. And I applaud them for their courage because, man, it's a tough road to hoe. To go and become a central figure and tell what you know. Your life is made miserable thereafter. For Lou Elizondo, it's been that way. He's written a book, a best-selling book. He has another one, I think, coming, and I can't wait to read them. But, we did 5 interviews with him for Mystery Wire. The one you've just shown is the first long-form interview he did on camera. We've got that and 4 other ones from back in that time period that we're going to put together. Right?
We'll put together and put the pieces together and have it out there for you on MysteryWire.com. So with that, George, thank you very much. I could go on for hours still and talk to you about some of these topics.
You're trying to get me to spill some beans, aren't you?
I am trying to get you to say something here, and I will eventually. Okay. With that, thank you for watching, everybody. More episodes. You can see it here on the 8 News Now website, on Mystery Wire, and on the YouTube page, wherever you find it. I love seeing some of the emails we're getting from all over the place on this.
That's some funny stuff. To find Mystery Wire, you got to go through the 8 News Now app, right?
Yes, and it'll pop up. Okay. So, all right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye for now. Have a good one.